Here we go. All right, let's start all the devices now. This is the topology that I have in GNS3, and then I have a big IP in VMware Workstation, right? Okay, so it says like it has some issues, right? So let me stop all the devices first, and let me just go to configure. Delete. Okay. Configure. Delete. Apply. Okay. Once again, configure it. That's VMnet2. Add. Apply. Okay. And then interface. It's 1 by 0. Get connected to VMnet. Uh, uh, Let me remove it. Thereafter, go to configure, get it removed, apply OK, configure. Right, looks like some issues are there with this topology, right? So VMNAT 3 is there, get it added, apply OK. So 0, VMNAT 3. So it says the error while sending command. These are no Ethernet device and PNP and all. So okay. So guys, it looks like it has some issues, technical issues in backend. So I might have to reboot my system. So let me reboot my system quickly, and then I'll be back very soon, right? Just give me one sec. I'll have to reboot my system because without that, I do not really think that this problem will get fixed out. Hey guys, I'm back. रीस्टार्ट तो कर लिया है, बट अगेन मुझे देखना पड़ेगा कि वो चलता है या नहीं चलता है, राइट? एक सेकेंड रुको। F5 लैब करते हैं स्टार्ट। नहीं तो टोपोलॉजी दोबारा बनानी पड़ेगी, कोई बात नहीं, बना लेंगे, वो भी कोई इतना बड़ा इश्यू नहीं है हमें। ऑन तो किया है मैंने, देखो इस बार ये एरर मैसेज थ्रो करेगा या नहीं करेगा। बिकॉज अगर एरर मैसेज थ्रो किया तो कनेक्टिविटी नहीं मिलेगी मेरे को। लुक्स गुड दिस टाइम, तो मैं इसको भी ऑन कर देता हूँ यहाँ पे। अभी तक तो ठीक है। ये सब सामने जो लगे हुए हैं ना, ये सर्वर, ये राउटर ही है बेसिकली, तो इनको मैं एज ए वेब सर्वर यूज करूंगा। मैं आपको टोपोलॉजी समझा देता हूँ कि मैंने टोपोलॉजी क्या यूज की है यहाँ। ठीक है सर। तो पहली बात तो मैं वो हार्डवेयर डिवाइस जो मैंने आपको एक्सप्लेन किया था उस पर वापस आ जाता हूँ यहाँ पे। प्रवीण, आज आपकी शायद ये फर्स्ट क्लास है, आई बिलीव, राइट? हेलो।
Yeah, sir, first class.
ओके। तो इसके हिसाब से देखो, जो डायग्राम हम बनाएंगे ना यहाँ पे सब जीव, अगर कहीं समझ ना आए तो रोक देना मेरे को, ठीक है प्रवीण?
Yes,
So,
yes.
what we are going to do is, Arjun, let's start with this now. So, we are building a lab now, right? And we are going to build our lab in this way only. Like we will have an internet. Behind internet, we will have a test user machine, like customer network. And then we will also have a data center. Right, guys? So now I'll try to build the lab and I'll explain you that how we have built our lab, what are their IP addresses, and like that, right? And thereafter, I'll start adding the devices, right? Like nodes, members, schools, like that. So guys, what's happening here is, I'm going to draw this diagram in this way. So look at this DNS. I have a customer edge network, right? And then I have a ISP, and then I have a data center that you can see over here, right? So let me just have open up. Waiting for Epic Pen so that I can draw the diagram. Come on. Perfect, guys. So what I was explaining you, we have a customer network. This is my customer network, right? This is my customer. Forget about IPv6 addresses at the moment. Just look at the IPv4 address. So Just imagine that this is your modem ADSL route, which is having a public IP of 11.1.1, and here we have enabled NAT, so that the user behind this, like in lane, I'm using a private IP, and you can see that there is a virtual switch here, and I have an end user connected to it. And the IP address of that end user will be like any IP address from the 10's range. So let's say its IP address would be 10.10. The default gateway is going to be 10.1. So that's the customer environment. So I'll have one test user machine, and the test user machine is again available within my VMware. So you can see that I have Windows 7 PC1, and I'll be using this PC1 for this purpose, right? So that's VMNet 8, and I have already connected this virtual machine Windows 7 PC1 to VMNet 8 only, right? So it will have connectivity by gateway. So this is the test machine that I'll be using here, right? The second point that I would like to discuss, that further this customer environment is connected with ISP, which is allowing routing only for the public IPs, right guys? Thereafter, you have your data center, and this is your data center edge router, which is having a public IP address 22.1.1.1, and will also have a default route pointing towards ISP. Now, within data center, you are using kind of, the private IPs in backend. So your DCH is further connected with big IP. So here is your big IP. This is your big IP. The IP address of DCH router here is going to be a private IP like 191.6800.254 on its F1 by 0. And 100.1 will be allocated to your big IP on its 1.1 interface. 1.1 interface. So big IP is connected to your DCH, and further your big IP is also connected here. Like this is also your big IP is connected with your lane servers. Like this is your server form, right? This is your server form, which is connected with 1.2 interface, and here you are using 191.60.20.0/24 subnet and the VLAN 20. And here I'm using VLAN 10. So we have a DCH router, then we have a big IP, and then big IP. Behind big IP, we have 6 servers, and their IP addresses will be like 20.10, 20.20, 20.30, 40, and .60, like this. These all are routers, and I'll be utilizing them as a web server. So finally, if you want to see this diagram in a logical way, then this is going to be something like this. There is an end user connected with a switch, connected with a customer edge router, which is further connected with ISP, and then it is connected with the DC edge. DC edge is further connected with big IP, and big IP is connected further with switch, and then you have real servers like this. So you have a data center, you have a customer environment, you have an ISP. Public IP addresses are allocated to CH here 11.1.1. Public IP is also allocated to your DCH 22.1.1/30. Here you are using private subnet 1.10.0/24. That's why you will have to configure NAT on this modem, and which is of course necessary. On this DCS, this is further connected with big IP. Here I'm using VLAN 10, and the subnet that I'm using here 191.68.100.0/24, out of which .254 is allocated to your router, and .1 will be allocated to your big IP. The interface on big IP I'm using for outside network is 1.1. This is your interface, right? Interface ID. And here I'm using 1.2. This is also your interface. The VLAN that I'll be using there is VLAN 20. The subnet that I'll be using here 191.68.20.0/24. .1 IP is there. .20, .10, .20, .30, .40, like that. Have you understood this diagram? If not, please go ahead and ask me questions. Read.
Yeah, it is okay.
Okay, perfect. Arjun, are you comfortable with this diagram? No, it's directly connected. Switch is nothing. It's a layer 2 connectivity, right? So big IP cannot be directly connected with the servers because it doesn't have that much number of interfaces, right? No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I mean, yeah, it is like a router, right? Because you cannot directly connect your servers to a router, right? Again, router, then switch, and then your servers, right? So in similar way, yeah, of course, it will have a routing table as well, right? It's a layer 7 device, boss. So if it will have like MAC address table, it will have routing table, right? It will have ARP table. It can understand the applications as well. It's a layer 7 box. The layer 7 proxy, I would say. And you remember why I'm calling it proxy, because it will have a separate connection table for the clients as well as for the servers, right? So that's why I'll call it proxy. And it's a reverse proxy because you are putting this proxy at the end of servers. That's why you will call it reverse proxy. So it's a reverse full proxy. Um, I mean, this is how we gonna utilize this big IP because I'll be using it as a LTM. So this big IP, I'll utilize it as a LTM because the same big IP could be utilized as a DNS server or maybe as an APM or maybe as an ASM, right? Or maybe as an AFM. But I'm gonna utilize this big IP as a LTM, okay? And this is what we are supposed to cover during our training because we are supposed to learn this LTM technology only, right? Not APM, ASM, AFM, like that. Any questions? Okay. All right. Perfect. So, guys, can you give me just 1 sec, please? Because I have someone here. So I just need to speak to him just for 1 or 2 minutes. Can you give me like just 2 minutes, please?
Yeah, sure.
Pablo, all right, guys, I'm back. So, who is joining from Redmi? Is it Jagdish, you or somebody else? Who has joined from Redmi? Redmi phone?
Ravindra.
Ravindra. Okay. All right, guys. So yeah, this is the diagram that I was talking about, right? And this is how we gonna assign the IP addresses, right? So this is the logical diagram that we will be working on. So please keep this picture in your mind. In fact, you can also draw this diagram. Okay, you can draw this diagram if you really want to draw it. But remember, while we are performing the practicals, because the all testing, I mean, whatever we perform here, the testing will be done from this end user machine only. So this is your end user machine, which is inside the customer environment. This is client network, right? Connected with an internet. Then internet is connected with data center. So this is all your data center. This part is data center, which is again connected with ISP. For that, you have DC edge router, then it is further connected with big IP. On big IP, currently I'm utilizing only two interfaces like 1.1, 1.2. I told you that in Cisco, we call interfaces like fast Ethernet, 0 by 0, 0 by 2. So like here we call it like 0 by 1, 0 by 2. But in big IP, interfaces will be known as like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 2.1. You understand that? 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So as of now, on my box, I have interfaces like only three data interfaces and one management port. So I have management port on my big IP, and I have three data ports like 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Currently, I'm using only 1.1. So 1.1 is for my external interface, because big IP is connected with an internet using 1.1 via DCH router. And then 1.2 is connected with the real server. So 1.2 is my internal interface, right? So 1.1 will be part of VLAN 10 and 1.2 will be part of VLAN 20. And the subnet that I'll be using for VLAN 10 is 192.168.100.0/24. .254 is assigned to router and .1 will be assigned to your big IP. And 192.168.20.0/24 is for VLAN 20, which is used for, in between big IP and the real servers, right? So our big IP, this 1.2 interface, we will put this interface part of VLAN 20, in VLAN 20, and also we'll assign an IP address from this subnet 20.0/24, and we will assign the first valid IP address on this interface. This is how it is going to work. Any questions so far? So if anyone having any questions around this topology, please go ahead and ask those questions, because this is the logical topology. But since I'm using virtualization, so few devices are over, GNS3, and I have deployed few devices inside the VMware workstation. Okay. However, if I talk about your practice, you will be accessing our online lab, and that I have already told you that how you can have access to our online labs, right? So to access our online labs, go to this URL, which is cloud dc.mylabs.cloud. Go there, get logged in using your user ID and password. You will get all those credentials, and then get login to your F5 lab like this. So you have F5 lab like this, F5 LTM, right? So if you double click on it, you will have access to this topology like this. And then everything will be done on this topology. So again, it's the same topology as I explained here, right? So you can see we have a DC edge router, we have a ISP, we have a customer edge, and then lane switch, and then Windows user machine. Similarly, this is your data center, right? This hall is, these all devices belongs to your data center. So you have a DC edge router connected with big IP 1 and 2 for the redundancy purposes. Of course, you would also configure redundancy between the switches as well, because this is where you have the single point of failure, right? So that's not going to happen in production environment, right? Of course, at least in data centers, you would never have single point of failure. But I have built this topology, perform the practicals of big IP, so that's where you will be working on. And these all are servers. Basically, these all are routers, which you can utilize as a web servers, and also we have two machines which you can utilize as a FTP servers, right? So you can deploy the FTP services, you can deploy the web services, nothing more, nothing less, right? However, you have an option to deploy the radius services, maybe SIP servers, right? And you can deploy your various services over here. Maybe you have Exchange servers, email servers, like SMTP servers, right? So that depends. But at the moment, we will be doing practicals only for the web services, right, and for the FTP services. And that should be sufficient for all of you to understand the functionality, to understand the feature set of big IP. So that's the topology that you will be working on. Okay. But at the moment, I'm going to access my local topology, and here I have my local topology. So this is my big IP, right? So let me log into it. So that's the console access. And now I have already configured an IP address to this. If I have not configured that, let me configure that. Let me go ahead and configure the management IP, right? So the management IP of my management interface would be like create sys, right? Management IP, and that's something going to be 2.2 for 6 maybe /24, and that's that piece. And then say save sysconfig. Now from my local machine, I shall be able to reach this IP address, which is 2.246. So from my local machine, let me try to ping 2.246. If I'm able to reach that IP address, then okay, I'm not, which means I'll have to configure that IP address onto my VMNet 1. So here is my VMNet 1. Let me configure an IP address to this VMNet 1. So 47. So let me make it 2 dot. Let me make it 2 dot maybe 100. No default gateway. And thereafter, let me ping this IP address once again. So this time I shall have reachability to 2.246. Yes, I do have reachability, and thereafter I shall have the GUI access to my big IP. So to have the GUI access of your big IP, access to 46. Okay, and say advanced, except it is because the device is using the self-signed certificate, right? The default, I mean, because I'm not going to use the default user ID password because I have already set the password during previous class. We have learned that how to change the password for the admin user, right? But I will log in with the given password, right? So let me put the password, and thereafter we can see that we are able to log on to our box, and we are using TMOS version 13 here. That you can see over here that we are using TMOS version 13. I'll show you that how you can check the version itself, but you can see host name, the IP address of the management interface, and the user and the role of this user, and of course the date and time. Okay. Thereafter, even you can try to access this device using SSH, using PuTTY, right? So if I go to PuTTY and let me access to 46. So the username is root using CLI, and the password I'll use the given password. TMSH, to move inside the TMSH, traffic management shell, or I would say like TMOS. So I'm inside TMOS now, because there are two different ways to configure your LTM, to configure your big IP using CLI. There are two different modes. One, you can use the Linux itself. So if you quit from TMOS, this is your Linux mode. And over here, you can see everything, whatever, I mean, you can do whatever you want using Linux commands. But I'll not be using Linux commands during this training. I'll be using only TMOS commands. So to move inside TMOS, right, say TMSH. That's how you can have access to your big IP using SSH. Thereafter, I'll have to do a lot of things here. I'll have to allocate IP address to its different interfaces, to its data ports, right? Like to interface 1.1, 1.2. We'll have to create the VLANs. We'll have to assign IP addresses. We'll have to configure routing if needed, right? And so forth. So let me show you something here to my GNS topology, right? First of all, so let me show you the configuration of this DC Edge router. So if you go to this DC Edge, let me have the console of each device. So I'll show you the configuration of ISP and the DC Edge and the customer edge, right? So if you go to the ISP, right? So if you go to ISP, you can see here that you have an IP address form. I mean, you have public IPs only onto your ISP router. In routing table, it has only public IPs, no private IPs there, right? Onto customer edge, you see that we have public IP on WAN facing interface, and thereafter we have configured NAT. So show run interface at 0/0, IPNet outside, show run interface F1/0. So this is not something that I'm going to teach you. You are supposed to have this knowledge that how to configure NAT onto Cisco devices, because for routing purposes, you will definitely use the Cisco devices. Okay. Thereafter, you have a end user machine, and that IP address would be like 10.10 or something like that. Okay, and then IPNet inside is there, and PAT has been configured over here. You can see that. Then I'll show you the DC Edge router over here. So this is your DC Edge router. Let me show you. Okay, let me have the console of this DC Edge manually. So here you go. This is your DC Edge. Show IP interface brief. WAN facing interface is having public IP, and then the interface which is facing the big IP is having 100.254 as expected, right? Show IP route, it has a default route pointing towards an internet, that's fine. Similarly, CE, customer edge, was also having a default route pointing towards an internet. So that's good, right? Thereafter, so that's fine. And then I'll go to big IP, right? I'll go to big IP, this big IP address, right? So I have a big IP, and then here you go. You have an access to your big IP, right? Even you have access to your big IP using CLI. So if you say show version, show, just wait. Just wait. So says version. So we are using version 14.1.0, even not 13. I was talking about 13, but we are using version 14. Okay. So recently, F5 has launched TMOS version 16 as well, but we will be using either version 13 or 14 during our training. Okay. However, the exams are still held using version 12, right? But during training, we will be using either version 13 or 14. So that's what we are going to use the TMOS version. Thereafter, let me go to the GUI access of your big IP. I'll have to create the VLANs. I'll have to configure the IP addresses accordingly. So to create the VLANs and to configure IP addresses, you will have to go to, right? You will have to go to network tab. So in left side, you can see the network tab. So first you will have to create VLANs. So I already have the VLANs, but I'll create them once again. Okay. So let me remove all the configuration, right? So I can get them removed from my CLI, right? So I can start removing the interfaces itself. The self IPs. So if I say list, network, and then self IPs. So I have created these self IP addresses over here, right? So IP addresses are already assigned, but I'll assign them again in front of you. And also I'll create the VLANs again in front of you. In previous class, I have taught you that how to create, how to configure Ether channel, like how to deploy how to perform one leg deployment. So one leg deployment is possible using big IP, but for that purpose, you will have to have the Ether channel in place between switch and the big IP, and thereafter, you will have to create the sub interfaces. That I have already taught you that how to do so. Okay. So today, I'll have like multiple leg deployment. I'm doing the multiple leg deployment over here, or dual leg deployment. Like one interface, I'm using a dedicated interface for the internal network and one dedicated interface for external network. Of course, which can cause, it can cause a single point of failure, right? This is not something recommended, because in production environment, it is always recommended to have the one leg deployment, right? But this time, let me just go ahead and make the implementation in this way only. So first, let me remove the self IP. So I'll just say delete, right? Delete what? Network, what? Self, what? All. It's done now. So list, NAT, network, NAT is for network, right? Self IP. Is there anything? No. Now delete, NAT, VLAN, all, right? Now say list, NAT, VLAN. Nothing is there, and now go ahead and save your configuration. So save this config. So this is how you could delete self IPs. You could delete the VLANs. Now I'll teach you that how to create the VLAN and how to assign IP addresses to your interfaces. Okay. So if I go back to my interfaces, you can see that I have three different interfaces like 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3, and all of them are uninitialized. And why are all interfaces uninitialized? Because none of them is part of any VLAN at the moment. None of them is part of any Ether channel as of now. Okay. So nothing is initialized yet, right? So that's why the interfaces are uninitialized. But we have three different interfaces only: 1.1, 1.2. 1.1 I'm using for connecting my big IP with external network via DCH, and 1.2 I'll be using it to have my internal connectivity towards my real servers. So the first step to initialize all these interfaces, because this is not sufficient to make the physical connectivity between switch and your big IP. This is not sufficient to have the physical connectivity. After having connections between switch and your big IPs, make sure that you first create the VLANs onto your big IP. So if you go to the VLANs, right? So you don't have anything there, right? So let me go ahead and create the VLAN. one for internal. So let's say I wanted to create an internal VLAN. Description is not needed, is not mandatory. The only mandatory field is name. Thereafter tag, let's say VLAN 20, right? Interface will be 1.2 and it's my access port. Therefore, I'll keep it untagged, right? Because my big IP is connected with switch, and at the end of switch, the port through which my 1.2 is connected is an access port. So I'm supposed to send the frames without any tag. So that's why untagged and get it added, and thereafter finish this out. So you have created this VLAN, right? Using GUI. If you wanted to create this VLAN using CLI, go back to your SSH access using CLI and go ahead and say create. I want to create network VLAN, and VLAN name I want to put external VLAN. Okay, and the VLAN ID would be, you know, like the VLAN ID would be tag is going to be, you know, VLAN 10, and then I'll have to add the interface, add which interface, which is 1.1, right? And then I can say, I mean, that's that, right? So you go ahead and create this VLAN using CLI. So that's the command to create VLAN. So I applied the same command once again, but it is giving me some error message saying that this VLAN already exists in this partition. Okay. So now you can go ahead and save sysconfig. So as I said before, as I made one statement before, that if you are making changes using CLI, then it is mandatory for us to save those changes manually. But in case if you are making changes using GUI, then your changes will get saved dynamically, automatically. You don't have to do anything for that purpose. Any questions so far? So now if I say list that VLAN, so it will list me all of the VLANs that I have created here. And same VLAN, I must see, you know, under VLAN list. You can see external VLAN is there, right? You can go to this external VLAN. You can see what do we have there, right? So we have 1.1 interface there. Does that make sense to all of you? That how to create VLAN using GUI as well as CLI? And even in CLI, you could make it more easy, right? Go to NAT, go to VLAN, and then you could say create what? Let's say failover VLAN. Let's say I wanted to use this VLAN for the failover, right? So I have assigned its name as failover VLAN, right? And then tag of VLAN 30, and then interface add what? 1.3, and then get it closed, and that's it. That's it. So now syntax is quite small. So I mean, this is quite similar to Juno. So if somebody has already worked over Juno's Juniper operating system, then TMOS will be so easy for them. In fact, TMOS, yeah, in reality it is easy. It's quite similar to Cisco IOS in regards with the command syntaxes. Okay, and you can reduce the syntax length by utilizing the features like Junos. Exit from there, exit, and then save your config. Now you go to VLAN list, you have one another VLAN with the name of failover VLAN for 1.3 interfaces. Now if you go back to your interfaces, and then you can see the status of all interfaces is up and running, right? The status is up now. In fact, you could click on one of the interface here to get the detailed information, right? So availability is up, full duplex, LLDP attribute, it can transmit only. It's up to you, right? You can modify that behavior as well. You could say receive, transmit, and receive both. So it's all up to you. So you can enable LLDP over here, right? Thereafter, even LLDP general, right? So by default, it's disabled. You will have to enable it, right? So in case if you have big IP connected with your Cisco switch and you want them to communicate with each other using LLDP, yes, you go ahead and configure LLDP on both ends, right? Because on Cisco switches, it's CDP, which is by default enabled, not LLDP, right? So in case if you want to enable LLDP onto Cisco switches, you will have to get the LLDP enabled manually. But again, it will definitely help you out a lot, right? Because using LLDP, you can easily identify that which all interfaces you have been using to make interconnections between these two devices, like between switch and big IP. Okay. All right. You go back to interface list, you could change the duplex like that. Thereafter, let's say now we have to assign an IP address. Remember, you cannot assign an IP address unless you put your interfaces into their appropriate VLANs, right? So once you have put your interfaces into their appropriate VLANs, post that, you can go ahead and assign IP addresses. And the IP addresses are known as self IPs, okay? So you know very well as per the diagram that which all IP addresses I have to allocate to my big IP, okay? So if I go to my big IP and self IP, right? So under self IP, I can go ahead and create the IP address. So name, like this is my internal IP, right? For my internal network, right? So the IP address that I wanted to allocate is 20.1, right? The mask will be 255, /24. The VLAN is the internal VLAN because that's where I want to allocate an IP address. Port lockdown is by default there, and by default, nothing is allowed, right? So in case if you are trying to access your big IP using this interface, not management, using HTTPS, it will not be allowed. However, you can allow the custom ports, right? So custom, like for example, I wanted to allow the TCP port number 443, right? Get it added. It will be added, or it will be allowed now. So now you can even have the access of your box using HTTPS, using this particular interface, rather having access to your big IP using management interface. So it's totally up to you, right? But by default, nothing is allowed. So by default, it's allowed none. So that's port lockdown. But this is only for that data. This port lockdown, this feature or these settings are applicable only for those packets which are destined for this interface only, like which are having their destination IP as 20.1. Like these settings, like the settings of this port lockdown will not affect your transit data. Like if you have some packet, right, which are just going through your big IP. So these settings will not affect that data, right? So this setting, the port lockdown, this setting will affect only those packets which are having their destination IP as 20.1, which are destined for this interface only. Make sense to all of you? So by default, nothing is allowed, right? This is again similar to Junos. If you have worked onto Junos, you have to allow the services onto interfaces, right? By default, there is no service which is allowed onto your Juniper boxes, be it is a router or it's a firewall, SRX firewall, right? You have to allow the services manually. In similar way, it goes with big IP, right? So you could even say allow all. It's up to you. It's like Cisco router now. All services are allowed on this interface. Okay. Now traffic group could be floating, non-floating. So as of now, we are just focusing over non-floating only. Later on, I'll be discussing about the floating IP as well. So non-floating is like physical IP, right? The floating is kind of virtual IP. If you have worked over HSRP, BRRP, GLBP, so if you are configuring HSRP for gateway redundancy, so you have to allocate two different IPs onto your interfaces. One, physical IP, second, the virtual IP. So the physical IP is like non-floating. The virtual IP is like is the floating IP address. So if you are going to configure high availability, right? If you are configuring high availability, then you would definitely require to configure the floating IP address. But at this moment, we have a standalone box. We do not have high availability, and that is why we don't have to configure the floating IP. So by default, it was non-floating, and I keep it non-floating. Okay. Go ahead and save your changes. So you could say repeat if you want to configure an IP address onto some other interface as well. Also, you can say finished if your work is done. I'll just say finished because I'll configure an IP address now using CLI onto external interface. So using CLI, you can also configure the IP address. So create NAT self, right? And then you could assign the name to this IP address, right? So like external IP. Then you could say the address is going to be, like 168.100.1/24, and thereafter VLAN is going to be external VLAN, right? And thereafter allow services, let's say all. That's the syntax. Now save, sys, config, right? Now you could say list the movement, list NAT set. So it will list you the IP addresses assigned to your interface. Okay, like this. If you go back to GUI, earlier it was showing you only internal IP, but now it should also show you external IP address. So this is how you can assign an IP address using GUI as well as CLI, okay, to your big IP. Now, thereafter, let me go back to your big IP, and onto your big IP. Now we can try to think with the 100.254, which is your router's IP address, show IPR, show system, NAT, ARP table. Okay. Thereafter, you can also try to ping the real servers, which are 20.10. Yep, that's good. 20.20. Really good. 20.30. Really good. 20.40. You're getting replies, right? So which is really good. 20.50, which is server 5. This is also providing you response back. 20.60. This is also, yep, that's good. That's nice. Any questions, boss?
Yeah, sir. Praveen
Yeah,
here. So,
please go ahead.
when you gave the VLAN, when you created the VLAN in the GUI, there was an option to tag and untag. So, like, is there any option in the CLI as well to tag and untag the VLANs?
Yeah, I think it should be. It should be. So if you say create, VLAN, create NAT, VLAN, right? And then let's say test, and then, you could say tag 30, and then there should be some option over here, and maybe not. So I'll have to see that. No, it's not there. If I say interface, add .1, do I have that option here? I have MTU. No, it's not there. No, man. So using CLI, there is no option to perform tagging, right? But yes, using GUI, that option is there. Should be available. I'll have to double check on that. But I'm not, I mean, somehow I'm not able to see that over here. Okay.
Okay.
So that's how you're gonna make this whole configuration, guys, right? So even we can also check for the routing table. So to check the routing table, show NAT route. Here you go. So you have 100.0 directly connected, 20.0 directly connected. But we do not have any default route pointing towards an internet, and we should have that, right? We should have that default route. So if you want to configure the default route using GUI, go to routes and then configure that. Like go and get it added. Add, provide some name. Let's say default route. Okay. Destination, mask, gateway, which is going to be 100.254. That's my router's IP, right? Go ahead, get this finished. Default route is there. And in fact, if you go back to CLI now, show NAT route, it should have default route. Yeah, it has that. Destination is default, right? So, I mean, it will not give you like 000/0, but it will give you instead, instead it will give you default name over here, right? So gateway is like 100.254. It's a static route, okay? So that's how you could add using GUI. If you want to delete that, go ahead and delete that. And thereafter, you could also add your default route using CLI. So you could go to NAT, create route, and then provide some name. Let's say, first of all, it is asking for the IP address and net mask, right? So let's say default and then 000/0, and thereafter, I mean, let me put it in this way. Create route, test default, right, and then 000/0 gateway, which is 100.254. List net route. List. It doesn't have that.
Sir, I think we use network after the route name. That is the command.
Wait. Yeah. That's correct. So test default and then network and then 000/0 and then gateway and then that's what you can add 100.25. Tactical. Saves this config but put flash because you are in different mode now. Then saves it. List NAT route is there, and then also you can say show NAT route. The default route is there. Even if you go to GUI, you should be able to see the default route. Test default. Okay. So that's how you can add the default route in your routing table, or maybe some static route. You could add that. Okay. Now, thereafter, even you have the packet filters onto your big IP. And this packet filter, right? This packet filter is applicable to this box itself. Like it's not applicable to your interfaces. It's applicable to your box. So you could enable it first of all, say update, and then you could create rules like this. Create, and then you could say what is allowed, what is not allowed. What is allowed? It's like ACL, right? But this is not something that you are applying by default. Like you're not applying it to a specific interface. So by default, you are applying to to all interfaces. However, if you wanted to allow, if you wanted to apply this ACL only for a specific VLAN, that is also possible, right? So you could define that, hey, I want, if this is source, this is destination, this is source protocol, destination protocol, and if that packet matches on, if that packet is found on this interface, should get dropped or should be allowed. It's up to you. So I'll teach you this whole stuff in more and more details, but not now. It's not needed at this moment. But yes, this is where you could create the packet filters, right? This is where you could define that which traffic is allowed, which is not allowed. Okay. So to protect or to provide more security to your network. So that's where you can configure this packet filter. So if you have any questions around this, please go ahead and ask your questions, because this packet filter is not that much difficult. You can define your protocol, source host or network, destination host and network, destination ports like this. Okay. So that's quite easy, right? I'll teach you that once again, but at this moment, this is what I wanted to discuss with you. Okay. Other than that,
do we define the direction of packet filter?
No, you don't do that. Okay. So this is quite similar to checkpoint. Remember, onto checkpoint also you do not define any direction. You just create the rules and it's applicable to all of its interfaces. Okay. So in any direction, if that packet, if that statement matches in any direction, it will match the packet and will take the action accordingly. Okay. So by default, you can see that it's applied in both directions onto an interface. Thereafter, we can go back to tunnels where you can configure multiple tunnels, like GRE tunnel or IPsec tunnel, like that. So the protocol, the tunnel, right? The profile, you could select the GRE. We'll have to define the local address, which should be a public IP address, and the destination address, which should be a public IP address once again. So that's how you would configure the GRE tunnel interface. So remember, you can configure the GRE tunnel, and also you could configure the, like, you should have the IPsec tunnel as well. Okay, like local address, the remote address. So you could define the IPsec tunnel over here, right? And IPsec parameters will be defined under IPsec only over here. Okay, but that's not something that we are looking for again. Or maybe you could redirect your traffic using WCCP, right? So let's say you have a connection between big IP and router, and from router you want it to redirect some data using WCC, right? So you have that option as well. Like you could configure WCCP between router and big IP, so that you could send conditional traffic from your router to your big IP using WCCP for the load balancing purposes. Okay, so that is also supported over here. So let's come back to interface status, the routes and self IP. So I do not really think that you have any option. That you have any problem with that. So now what I will do, I'll start with the LTM a little bit, right? So you know very well that when we get started with the LTM, so first of all, you will have to get your nodes added. Nodes, we will have to understand what is node, what is pool member, like that. So the server itself, like this physical server, is known as node, and you will have to get them added onto your big IP. So in this topology, I have 6 servers, and all of them are also known as node. So I have already tested the connection between big IP and my nodes. I shall get them added onto my big IP. So now go to local traffic, where you will make the configuration related to LTM only. So go to LTM tab. Under LTM tab, local traffic tab, there is an option of nodes. If you want to add nodes, go ahead and create them. Click on create, assign some name here. So let's say server 1. Provide IP address of that server. So let's say it was 20.10, and that's it. Other configuration, we can keep the default, like health monitor, it's not default. Ratio is by default 1. Connection limit is by default 0, which means nothing. Connection rate limit is also 0, which means nothing. I mean, there is no limit set actually, if it is 0. Go ahead and repeat that, then add server 2. The IP address, 20.20. Finished. That's how you would add the server 2. We have some other servers as well. So now I'll teach you that how to add nodes onto your big IP using CLI. TMOS, LTM, node, create, server 3, and IP address, which is 20.30. Okay? IP address should be non-zero. It should be server 3, address, and then 20.30. Then server 4, 20.40. 20.50. Thereafter, make it server 5. Make it server 6. List. You have all of the servers. Save config. I cannot execute this command because I'm inside nodes. So I'll have to say save/sys and then config. You will go back to TMOS. Then you can go back to GUI. You can see node list. You have all 6 servers. They all are using default monitor. They all are using default monitor. And if I go to default monitor, there is nothing under default monitor. And that's why the status of all nodes is unknown, because the meaning of blue square is unknown. You can see that. So if I hover my cursor onto this blue square, right, then it is saying me that the status of this node is unknown. So when it says unknown, the meaning of it, I'm not sure whether it is up or down. I don't know the status of this node, right? And why don't we know? Because we have applied a default monitor to all of the nodes, but default monitor is not having anything there. It's not doing anything. So at least I can call ICMP, right? Under default monitor. As soon as I call ICMP, what will it do? Because default monitor is applied to all of the nodes. So all nodes will try, my big IP will try to reach all these nodes. My big IP will try to ping these servers. And you can see my big IP is able or was able to ping all of them. And that's why the status is now green circle, which is available, right? The meaning of green circle is available. So that's how we modified the default monitor, right? So it was default monitor, and inside default monitor, I called ICMP, right? So now by default, my big IP will try to ping, or it will keep pinging all these servers, all these nodes. That's how you can check the status of your nodes, right? So you have just added a server onto your big IP using its IP address. That is called node. So node is nothing, it's just a server, right? It is just an IP address. You can look at there, right? It is just an IP address that is known as node. Any questions, sir?
Saurabh, Praveen here. So, you showed us to get the server status with the ICMP. That can be done with the other parameters as well that are defined in there, right?
Yeah, but it is always recommended to use the ICMP for the nodes, because if you are adding a node is nothing. It's just an IP address, right? And if you just wants to check the liveness of your node, it is sufficient to ping that particular IP address, right? Because if you are able to ping that particular IP address, which means your server is in up and running state, right?
Yep.
So for nodes, that's sufficient, right? But yeah, in case if you want to monitor some services or applications, then ping is not going to help you out at all, right? So that depends that what are you trying to monitor. Okay. So monitors, it's a separate topic that we will cover later on. So under that topic, we will only talk about the monitors in more and more details, right? So then I'll teach you that how many different types of monitors we have, in which circumstances we should use which type of monitor. Okay. So that's something that we will leave for later on.
Okay. Okay.
Any other question from anybody else? Okay.
Yes, Saurabh, Praveen here again.
Yeah.
So, I can see there are few tabs when, apart from IP addresses, we can also define the FQDN. So, is the FI device able to resolve the FQDN on its own?
No, in production, you can have anything, either FQDN or IP address. So we are using DNS server there, right? So maybe your server is reachable using FQDN also, like, hey, server one dot imerita dot. You get my point?
Yes, I got it.
So it all depends upon the DNS availability, right? So
Yes.
yeah, that's fine. So there is no difference if you are adding your nodes using its IP or not, IP or FQD. Because ultimately, if it is FQD, and again, it is going to generate a DNS request for that FQD, and based on that, it will try to reach that out. Okay. Ultimately, it has to convert that FQDN back into the IP address, because the connectivity can be checked using IP address only, or any type of data can be sent using IP address only, not FQDN. So guys, this is how you can add nodes. So node is nothing, it's just a server, and IP address is allocated to that. So the IP address of that server is known as node. It's nothing more, nothing less. We are not aware which all services are running on this node, right? We are not aware with that. Whether those are up or down, we are not aware with that. So that's node. And we cannot do anything with this node, with these nodes, right? It's not going to do anything for these nodes at this moment, right? Now I'll just have discussion over the pool, right? So I'll get the pool added onto your big IP. So pool is nothing but it is just a group of members, pool members, right? So if you go back, so as I said, pool is nothing but just it is a group of members like this, right? So here you go. Pools, members, and nodes. Okay. So node is nothing, just an IP address. You can see. Member is node plus port. I mean IP plus port. That is called pool member. And a group of pool member is known as pool. So first you will have to add the node and then only you will be able to create a pool by having pool members like this. Let me go back and let me create a pool over here, right? So pool, create, assign some name. Let's say it's my web server pool. Now monitor. Again, I can use ICMP at the moment, right? Because if I do not use the monitor, then the status will be unknown for my pool members. Because pool members will inherit the monitor from pool. So whatever monitor you are applying to this pool, the members, right? Members will be inheriting the health monitor from this pool itself. Any questions so far? The default load balancing algorithm that I have already discussed with you guys, right, during basics, that hey, there are several load balancing algorithms supported by big IP, and you can categorize them into two different categories. One is static one, and one is dynamic. So under static, you have like round robin, which is by default there, right? So this round robin algorithm is by default, right? It's by default there. Priority group activation is by default disabled, and at the moment I'm not going to discuss anything about that. Later I'll get this enabled, and I'll show you that how you can leverage this feature to have some sort of redundancy again. Okay. Now you will have to add the members over here, right? So member, you can add a new node. I don't have to add the node using IP or FQDN because I already have a node list. So I'll click on node list. Then it will give me a list of all nodes over here, right? So this is node number 1, and the service. I'll have to tell, hey, this server is running this service. Which service? Using this port. So let's say 8000 because I have, I'm using a customized port, custom port on my web server. So if I go to my web server and if I check the HTTP configuration over here, right? Look at this. I'm using a custom port for web services, right? 8000. So 8000, right? Get it added. So that's member. For server 2, gets added, get it added. Server 3, get it added. And at this moment, only 3 servers are sufficient, right? I'm not going to add all of the 6 servers as a member in this pool. These 3 are sufficient, okay? So now the combination of IP address and the service port is known as pool member. And by combining all these 3 pool members, you are creating this pool. Go ahead, get this finished. That's how you will create this pool. Now the status is unknown, but sooner you will see the status of this pool will be green available because you already applied what? Monitor. And you used the ICMP. So you know, again, my big IP will try to ping all these pool members. Right, so you can see this is my pool, right? This is gateway ICMP, which is my health monitor. These all my members. These all are a member. If I click on one of my member, and you can see that by default, you know, it's inheriting the health monitor from pool. It is inheriting the health monitor from pool. So onto pool, I applied ICMP. So all of the pool members have inherited the monitor from the pool itself. That's why, I mean, all pool members state is green because we are, I mean, big IP is able to ping them. Since big IP is able to ping them, Therefore, the status is green. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yes, Saurabh, Praveen here again. So, like as you said, like these the parameters which you are defining in the pool will be inherited, right? For the node. So if
Yeah,
I'm
like
not
health
defining,
monitor, like
yeah,
health
yeah.
monitor. Hmm.
So if suppose I'm not defining any parameter on the nodes, so like will it be inheriting from the pool or like I have to
Pool
manually define
members
it?
will inherit from pool, not nodes.
Okay, okay, got it, got it.
Okay. So you have to apply the monitors to nodes separately. I mean, to nodes and your pool separately. So pool, I mean, the nodes will never ever inherit the monitor from pool. Only pool members can inherit health monitors from pool. Okay.
Okay, got it.
All right, guys. So that's how we have created, this pool. And pool is having the default load balancing algorithm as round robin. So again, there should not be any issue for any one of you around this, like how to create the pool, how to get pool members added on top of that, and how to add nodes. And if you don't add node, remember, you cannot create even pool, right? So adding node is primary task. Then secondary is to create pool. And now you will be deploying, you will be hosting your services. Let's say I have a website running on my web servers, and I want to provide the access of that website to my internet users. Okay, guys? So you know very well that what my diagram is. So let me open my diagram, okay? Just a moment. This is my diagram. So here my client is, will come to internet, will come to DCS, and then big IP, and then big IP will provide an access of the website to my end user from any one of these servers, server 1, server 2, server 3, right? So I have already created a pool here, right? So to deploy any application, you would require to have a virtual server. You would require to deploy a virtual server for deploying any service. So I have a web service. I want to deploy that. I'll have to create a virtual server. And to this virtual server, I mean, this virtual server must be reachable to each end user. So now it is mandatory for us to allocate a public IP address to this virtual server. Now there are two methods to allocate a public IP for this virtual server. One, you can directly assign a public IP onto this big IP for this virtual server itself, or you could define a static NAT here on DCH, and you could map that public IP into the private IP that you have allocated to this virtual server. So either static NAT should take place, or you can directly allocate your public IP to your big IP. So at this time, what I'm going to do is I will directly allocate a public IP address to my virtual server. So this data center will require to purchase a public pool of IP addresses, right? So let's say this organization has purchased a pool of public IP addresses, which is 5.5.5.0/24. This is the pool of public IPv4 addresses, which this organization has purchased from ISP. So now ISP must have a route for this public subnet towards DCH router. And since I'll be using these public IP addresses directly on my big IP, so even DCH should have a should have a static route for this public subnet towards big IP. So that if any end user machine is trying to hit, let's say 5.5.1, it will give it to the default gateway will give it to the internet, and then internet should give this packet to the DCS, and DCS should give it to the big IP. And it can be done only if routing is in place. So ISP must be able to perform routing for this subnet towards this data center router, and data center router should also forward those packets towards big IP. So I'll have to check the routing first. So in my diagram, I have purchased a public subnet, which is 5. 5.5.0/24. So let me go to the ISP router and let me see if I have a static route pointing towards DCH router. So yes, I already have a static route over ISP pointing towards DCH for this subnet. And thereafter, DCH should also have a static route for this public IP subnet towards 100.1, which is my big IP. So that's good, which is already there in my topology, right? Onto ISP router as well as DCH router. So that is good. Now, since I have routing is already in place, right? So I can directly go to my big IP and I can deploy the application using virtual server. So let me go back to my big IP now. I'm on big IP. And thereafter, I'll go to my virtual server and I'll be deploying my application. I'll be deploying my website here. I'll be hosting my website, which is, actually running on my real servers, and real servers are using private IPs. So I'll just go ahead and we'll create a virtual server over here. First name, and it is mandatory for you to define the name. So let's say virtual server for iMerita website. The type is by default standard, and that's what you use for load balancing purposes. Source IP address, I don't know, because users will come from the internet, right, for accessing this website. So I don't know what public IP addresses they will be using, right? Because it could be anyone, maybe sitting in India, in Bhutan, in America, in Europe, anywhere, in Australia, Middle East, anywhere across the world, right? So that's why I'll keep it as it is, because if I don't put anything, which is default any, right? So source address will be any. Destination, that should be your virtual server IP address. So let's say it's 5.5.5/32. So this website, I'm hosting this website using this public IP address 5.5.5/32, right? So if somebody is trying to hit this IP address, will have access to this website, okay? Service port, because I don't want to provide my custom port, right, to my end users, right? So I'll call HTTP, well-known port number, right? So I want my end user to hit on well-known port number, but my big IP will translate it to my custom port number, because finally I'll attach my pool to this virtual server. Okay, so the translation will be done by my big IP dynamically. You don't have to do anything extra for that. But this is what you have done. First, you allocated a name, you provided destination IP and destination port. So end user will hit. I'll just provide an IP address and the port number, right? And even if I have registered like www.imerita.com onto my global DNS servers, will provide them this IP address. That's it. So when you try to hit any name, right, by default your browser hits on port number 80 by default. Okay. So I'm not using here any DNS server. That's why I'll have to hit using the IP address itself. So port 80 is there. And you have not done anything extra till now. Assigned IP name, the name for this virtual server, the IP address, and the destination IP. Destination IP and destination port. That's it. Keep scrolling down, don't do anything, keep scrolling down, and finally call your pool. So I'm associating my web server pool to this virtual server. So if somebody is trying to hit this virtual server is gonna utilize this pool to provide services to the end users. Okay, so by default the load balancing algorithm was round robin onto that pool. So if somebody is trying to hit this virtual server, the users land onto those servers in round robin fashion, and we will prove it, right? So I'm associating this virtual server, I'm associating this pool with this virtual server. Finish. You're done. That's the least configuration that you would require to deploy any website using virtual server. Okay, that's the least configuration. However, there are so many other options as well, right, that we will keep discussing later on. But this is how you would deploy the service onto your big IP. Now, since we have deployed the service here, right, I'll have to make the test now, right? But before I do the test, before I perform the test, I'll have to make sure that these servers are having their default gateway configured, right? So let me go back to server 1, the physical server 1. Say route. So yes, it has default gateway 20.1, which is good. 20.1, which is also good. Server 3, it is also having the default gateway as 20.1, which is also good. Afterward, I'll go to my test machine. Right? Test machine is on VMware itself. So that's my Windows 7 PC, right? So let me resume it because it was stopped. So I'm on my test machine now. This test machine must have a default gateway and IP address to it. So let me see if it has an IP address and the default gateway configured first of all. Connected to client network, right? So that's my LAN interface, properties, IPv4 address, 20.70 and the default gateway is 20.1, which is not good. So it should be like 10. I can keep it 70, that's fine. And then 168.20, I mean, the default gateway should be 10.1 itself, right? 10.1. So you can see in diagram itself. So we were using this subnet here, right? So 10.70 is here on client machine, and then default gateway was 10.1. So let me go back to this client machine now, okay? So client machine, let me try to ping that virtual server first of all, right? So ping. Yes, that's good. That's a good news that we are able to reach that virtual server now. Thereafter, let me go ahead and let me open up the browser. Using browser, I'll try to access my web services using port 80, and by default it is going to hit over port 80. Wow, you got the access. So hostname is router 1, which means you landed over server 1. You landed over server 1. You can see that, right? Refresh it. Wow. Again, you got the access of website, but you can see hostname is router 2, which means you landed over server 2. Refresh. That's great. Now you again got the access of your website, but you can see the hostname is router 3, which means you landed over server 3. Refresh. Back on router 1. Great. Refresh. So website is reachable, right? Website is reachable. That's not an issue, right? But the load balancing is done in round robin fashion. That we can see. Because we are accessing the same website every time from different server, from different web server, and we had 3 different web servers, right? So now we need to understand that how this flow is working over here, how traffic is moving from client machine to your real server. Does that make sense to all of you? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Saurabh.
Great. Let me go back and let me open up, let me have access to my logical topology. So using this diagram, I'll explain to you that how traffic is moving from this test machine, right? So when you initiated a flow from this Windows machine, the source IP address was 192.168.10.7t and destination was 5.5.5.5 over port 80, and the source was maybe some random port number, maybe 1024. First of all, it is going to send the SYN message, right? Right, guys? So port we can discuss later on, but as of now, let me include only IP address. So the source IP was 10.70. The destination IP was, will provide this information to the CH because that's the default gateway for my machine. Now CH is already having a default route towards ISP, but before forwarding packet towards ISP, it will perform NAT, and here I am doing PAT, which will perform source NAT. So the destination IP will remain same, which is 5.5.5, but the source IP address will become now 11.1.1.1. Post NAT. and it will create an entry in its translation table. Now ISP is already having public IPs in its routing table. So based on this destination IP, it will perform lookup in its routing table and it will forward that packet towards DCH, because ISP is already having that static route available in its routing table, right? So based on that static route, will forward packet onto DCH route. Okay. Thereafter, TCH received it, and again, it is also having a route already available, static route towards big IP. So it handed over that packet to big IP. Now, big IP is having two separate connectivity. One is external and one is internal. External interface is 1.1, and internal interface is 1.2. So when your packet hit down to the external interface of this big IP, the source IP address was, the destination was. Now, by default, your big IP works as a firewall. Like by default, it doesn't allow any data. If the destination IP of the received packet is not matching with any one of the configured virtual server. So since I tried to hit 5.5.5, now this big IP will see if I have any virtual server configured with this IP address. So yes, it was there, right? So you have sent the SYN packet first. Now big IP is going to provide the SYN-ACK back to the end user machine, because I have a virtual server listening over port 80 and you hit down over the port 80 itself, right? So now big IP sent the SYN-ACK, and finally you sent an acknowledgement back to this big IP. So the connection got established here successfully. Thereafter, because big IP knows very well that these packets were managed by the virtual server, right? And we know that which virtual server was there, and then I will check what pool is associated with this virtual server. Fine. What pool is associated with this virtual server? I found a pool that was web server pool, right? Which is associated with this virtual server. Now it will check, are pool members available? Yes, very good. What is the load balancing algorithm? That's round robin. Okay, perfect. Have I picked up any other server before? No. So let's pick server 1. The first IP address, right? First pool member. I have picked up server 1 based on configured load balancing algorithm onto this pool. Right? Thereafter, now big IP, since it has selected a server, right? So it is going to bid the three-way handshaking with that server as well, right? So now big IP will send a SYN packet. But what will be the source IP address in that SYN packet? So source is going to be same as before. And the destination will be the actual server IP, because we selected server 1. So destination will be 192.168.20.10. That's the IP address of server 1, right? So it will send that SYN packet to that server. However, since this pool member is listening over port 8000, so destination port number will be 8000 this time. No matter what port number you hit from the client machine, because client machine hit down the port 80, but it will get translated to port 8000 automatically. So you can see the destination IP address in the port is getting translated automatically. You don't have to do anything for that. Now server will, if server is providing services over port 8000, then server will provide the SYN-ACK and then acknowledgement. So now big IP has established TCP connection with the client as well as with the real server, and it is maintaining two separate connection tables, right? One is for client, actual client, and one is for real servers. That's why we will call it full proxy, because it is maintaining two separate connection tables. Thereafter, Now this end user machine is going to generate the get packet. In get packet, source and destination will be like this. Then router will change the source IP, will give it to the DCS, DCS will give it to the big IP, and now big IP will provide that get message to the server 1. But in that packet, the source IP address will remain 11.1.1 and destination will be 20.10. So translation is done by the big IP dynamically, and you never did anything for that. Thereafter, server 1 will provide response back to the big IP. Now, big IP will translate the source IP address because the source was 20.10 this time. So now it should be 5.5.5 and the same source port number. And similarly, it should come back to your ISP and then customized router. It will check for the translation table. It will untranslate that and then will provide that information back to the end user. So that's how the end-to-end flow, or this end-to-end communication is taking place in this topology. If anyone having any questions around this explanation, please go ahead and ask those. Guys, perfect. Even I can prove it that the source IP address, when you hitting the packet to these real servers, the source is still the public IP address, right? We can test that out. Okay. So let me do one thing here. Let me make the capture. Let me go back to Windows 7 machine and let me perform some testing. Router 2, router 3, router 3, router 1. That's good. So we reached router 1. You can see that SYN packet, you look at the SYN packet, right? You see, the source is still 11.1. Make sense, sir? And the destination port is 8000, which means the port translation was done by the big IP itself. Okay? So the source IP was still the public IP address. So therefore, if you do not assign the default gateway here, let's say you don't have the default gateway, no IP, default gateway. Will you be able to access this website? No, man, because your web servers will not be able to respond back. Now it's moving, right? But page will never ever get loaded. No server will respond back without default gateway. So default gateway is mandatory. Or we have an option to configure SNAT, source NAT onto big IP itself. So that I'll teach you tomorrow, not today. But this is how I wanted to show you that, hey, this is how you can deploy the application, right? So, Parveen, do you have any questions around this?
No.
Perfect, guys. So let me go back and let me, once again, let me configure the default gateways here. Oh my God. So my devices went down. Oh. Let me turn all of the devices back up. My router got crashed since default gateway was not there, right? I mean, that's a software bug in GNS3 that I have observed in my topology. So guys, I hope that a lot of things got cleared today for you, for all of you, right? So I will not stretch this lecture a lot because we have covered a lot of things, Arjun, right, Arjun? And you just need to go through this theory, whatever I have covered so far, right? Because I've already taught you, I've already covered this theory, right? So please go through it as much as possible, right? And thereafter, I mean, tomorrow I'll cover a lot more, right? So I do have access to router 1, to router 2, router 3, and thereafter I can go back to my test machine. I can try to refresh my page. So you can see that yes, load balancing is taking place, right? Yeah, of course, of course. Like even if one of the router is down here, right? So let's say the router one went down here, right? So router one. So my big IP, since my big IP is monitoring, right? This server. So my big IP will declare, hey, this pool member is not available anymore, right? So if you go back to pool, members, go, just a moment, right? Pool, members, and here you go. You're gone, right? Server one is down. And therefore, nobody will be sent towards or over server one now, right? So if you go and if you refresh here, now R2 and R3, R2 and R3. Make sense, sir? And in case if that router comes back up, like that server comes back up, it will participate, like big IP will start participating or will include that server as well, right? So you would see router one very soon here. You see, router one was there, right? You can see that. Okay. So that's the automatic process. That's how it is. That's how it works. So even I can prove that it is building, you know, three-way handshaking with both client as well as the server. So I could say TCP done. First, I'm capturing packet over 1.1, and thereafter, let me go back to my Windows 7 PC. Let me refresh this page. You can see, stop it, and you could see that hey, onto 1.1, it has built SYN, that was SYN, right? Then SYNAC as dot SYNAC, and then acknowledgement, and you are done. Okay. So SYN SYNAC add between client and your virtual server. Make sense, sir? Thereafter, I'll say TCP done 1.2. Thereafter, I'll just I'll perform another test from my client machine. Stop it now. Can see three-way handshake was done between 11.1.1, which is the client public IP, and the server IP address. You can see that. SYN, SYNAC, and ACK. Make sense, sir? Show, sys, sessions, connections, all connections. You can see that. All the connections available in your connection table. Right, guys? However, you could use like grab, like that, grep, nothing is there, right? Because there is no connection at the moment. Right, guys? So you have a lot of options after pipe here. Not only grab. It's the only one. Maybe. Fine. So that's that piece. So if anyone having any questions, please go ahead and ask your questions. If not, then I'll continue tomorrow and we'll make a lot more progress. Okay. Okay. No issues, sir. All right, guys. So others, you can drop off like Jagdish, Parveen, and Rahul. You people can drop off now, and we'll see you tomorrow at same time, right?
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Sure. Wow, congratulations. Uh-huh. Hey, are you comfortable with Python? No, that's fine. But sometimes, people are not really comfortable with the coding, right? So I'll do one thing then. I would need your help on doing something. Okay. Can you spend like at least half an hour every day with me? Like if you are free, if you are available. Like I want you to help me out over the Python. Like I want to create some code. Like, will it be possible for you to spend like around 30 minutes every day? I'm not asking you to spend like 1 hour or 2 hours every day. 30 minutes. Yeah, so what it is asking for is that many congratulations. Let me see that. On successfully qualifying the online field preliminary quiz, you have now entered level 2. This is for Ideathon. The invite consists of Cisco, Ideathon, videos on the statistics. Please review the 3 problem statement and pick one problem statement of your interest truly research about it. Create a 90-second video on your idea to solve any one of the below problem statement. Use video editor or zip option to compress video size under 100 MB. Maximum size allowed is 100 MB. Face should be visible throughout the video. Click the start test link only once you are ready to upload the final version of your video. You get only once chance to upload the video. Kindly make sure that you have a stable internet connection while uploading the video. Okay. In the light of the present COVID pandemic, the healthcare industry is seeing unprecedented challenges. Technology has therefore become a critical tool for healthcare. How can AI be leveraged to provide people with critical real-time updates, effective symptoms screening, and potential test tests? The network availability and faster provisioning in the era of the digital world is high priority. How software-defined network can play a role in providing high availability network providers to identify and self-heal in case of failure or impact in the network. Use connected technology to solve business problems in unorganized sector, taken in organized sector, and find a technological solution to help that industry during an uncertain pandemic-like situation. So you can pick any one of the option and then you can create a video, right? So, so you need to provide that how this SDN, right, can play a role in providing high availability network and a solution, right? So SD-WAN and SD-Access, these two are the major components, or these two are the major technologies provided by the Cisco at the moment. Okay. So what SD-Access does, like let me give you an example of SD-Access, right? So what SD-Access does, uh, SD-Access will keep monitoring your network, okay? Every time, like 24/7. If any issue was found, then it can even heal the network dynamically. It can even perform troubleshooting dynamically, okay? Let me tell you. So there is a terminology called SDN, which is specified here. SD, no, it's not SD-WAN, it's SDN. So SDN is software defined network. Now under SDN, you have two aspects. One WAN side, which is called SD-WAN, and one is LAN side, which is called SD-LAN. Okay. So Cisco is providing you both of these solutions, SD-WAN as well as SD-LAN. Okay. Yep. Mhm. That's correct. But you should have that kind of product, right? Like if you talk about the Juniper CSO, this is also SD-WAN, right? SD-WAN solution, but it doesn't do any kind of self-healing, right? It does some sort of, not everything, right? Same goes as Cisco SD-WAN. It does a lot of things, but not everything, okay? Same goes SD Access, right? It does a lot of things about in regards with self-healing, but not everything. But yes, whatever is available as of today, you can explain that, okay? Yeah, there are so many problems. Like if you talk about the traditional networking, right? So in traditional networking, what was happening, like if some issues were coming out, right? And yeah, you were doing a lot of work manually. You were doing the troubleshooting manually. You were logging in, logging onto devices manually, right? Now you just have to log in onto one portal, and you can just perform trace out from there only, right? And you can easily find out where actually problem exists, and you can point out that location quickly, right? And then you can respond quickly and you can fix that problem quickly. Okay. So there are so many examples for same. Like for example, I mean, if you take an example of the traditional networking, right? If end user says, hey, he's not able to, I mean, the end user is not able to access any website, right? What you will ask for, okay, is end user is end user is I mean, you will ask a lot of questions, right? I mean, there will be a, yeah, there will be a, minimum data set that you will ask for, right? I mean, being a network engineer, you will ask to the end user. So if end user is not there, you cannot do anything. But SDN makes you capable that even in the absence of end user, right, you can perform the troubleshooting. Okay. If end user said, hey, I'm not able to access this website, yes, it can. Even if there is a problem over the firewall, right? So even it can display that, hey, it looks like firewall is dropping your data because the packets were able to reach out to the firewall. Okay, like that. Maybe you have configured some ACL onto your router, right? So it can also tell you that, hey, this router is dropping due to ACL. Maybe there is no route onto your router. It can tell you that, hey, there is no route on this router, and that's why packet is getting dropped. Okay, so that's how it shows you. Similarly, in case if your one of the link goes down, then it will, it will start using another link automatically, right? It can also perform some sort of load sharing, okay? And also it does like, I mean, SDN makes you enough capable to perform the routing at layer 7, right? Like application aware routing, which was not before, right? You can perform troubleshooting for applications itself, okay? So there are so many things that you can include within 90 seconds, okay? All right. Mhm. Wait for movement, huh? Wait for movement. Turn on all devices, please. Go ahead and turn on all devices. Yeah, go to right side, dot, 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 more actions. Power on all devices. Yes, here you go. Wait for some time. Okay. Press enter. Wait. Can you press enter again? Please report it to the management, right? Looks like that some application issue. Okay. So it's working now. Oh, fine, that's good. So maybe that it is taking time to boot up, right? First, so once it is successfully up, then you can have access, right? I mean, that's the default one, right? So by default, if you log into any device first time, so it's root and default, DEFAULT, and then it will ask for to change, ask for changing the password. Okay. All right. It should be password. I mean, it's like it should be something complex, right? So now your admin password is also same as what you defined here, right? So once you will have access to your GUI, put the same password over there as well, right? For the admin. So for admin also the password is same now. And you can have the GUI access of this box onto your management box. Do you see that management PC in your topology? There is. Yeah, there is a management PC, right? You can start this PC and you can assign an IP address from the same subnet to your management PC and to your management interface of the big IP. Okay. And from this PC, then you can have GUI access to your big IP. Make sense, sir? No. It's a Shiva. It's a Windows machine. Password should be Shiva. Right. Big IP. Yep. It's a Windows machine. It's a standalone box. So whatever password you configured on big IP, that is applicable only for big IP. From this machine itself. Right? All right. See you tomorrow then.